Good morning, everyone. I just running around the beautiful Riverwalk here in Hillsborough, North Carolina. It's a beautiful, if hot, morning. Got a first half marathon of the season coming up in about 12 weeks now, so just getting some mileage in before work starts. And for today's Dickinson, I wanted to try to run and recite, if that doesn't get too annoying for you, and maybe explain a little bit why this is one of my all-time favorite Dickinsons. And you'll realize that it's one of my favorites here in just a minute for obvious reasons. But here we go. I felt a funeral in my brain, and mourners to and fro kept treading, till it seemed that sense was breaking through. And when they all were seated, a service, like a drum, kept beating, till I thought my mind was going numb. And then I heard them lift a box and creak across my soul with those same boots of lead. Then space began to toll, as all the heavens were a bell, and being but an ear, and I in silence wrecked, solitary here. And then a plank in reason broke, and I dropped down and hit a world at every plunge, and finished knowing then. Thanks for listening, guys. So I don't want to add too much interpretation of my own here. It's a beautiful poem that has many of Dickinson's poems, focuses on the inward processes of extremes of depression in my mind and my interpretation, but also catharsis, the breaking through of worlds. Sometimes the darkest moments are when we break through to the most perceptive realizations about ourselves and about life. And this to me is a beautiful deconstruction of that, and discussion of that in stark imagery and in the feeling of distance. I mean, you can't get more distance than being an ear, hearing the universe ring its bell, and yet you in silence are the partners extricated from that experience. However, you also are the only one who breaks through that plank in reason. And I take that as a positive, not a, like some people's interpretation, this person going insane or disruption of the mind. If it's a disruption in my perception, and why it's so important to me is that it's a disruption in a positive sense. You broke through conventions, right? Like another one of her poems, much madness is divinest sense to a discerning eye. You have, even though it's been painful and you felt isolated, you've broken through those planks of reason that everybody else is just standing on top of, not realizing all the different perceptions of the world and the universe that lie beneath those planks that they can't even see or feel. And this person's broken through it. And that's why, to me, it's so important. Why, to me, I tattooed it on my body, is because that last stanza, beautifully enough, I won't say ironically it's not, but in a certain ironic sense, I guess, and when that poem is anthologized, that last stanza, the stanza I have on my body, and to me, the most important stanza of the entire poem, is left out. And it's put in school books, and it ends with that stanza of, I in silence wreck solitary here. And to me, there are a couple different reasons, but one main one I feel like too is that it's much easier to talk about that neat, if somber, little ending as opposed to the actual more powerful stanza that it ends with, where that person is breaking through reason and finished knowing. And again, another interpretation, I've always loved the idea that finished knowing then, and then you, the reader, are cut off from that experience because you have not had that revelation. It's kind of like, in a weird way, it connects to The Sopranos. The ending when Tony, it goes black. You're not privy to what happens. You've been effectively killed off from that further experience. And that's how I take the poem, is we don't get it. I finish knowing, then boom, that person's beyond us. You can also read it as, then I finish knowing. I finish knowing then. That to me is not nearly as powerful, but it's acceptable. And I mean, if you read it that way, I'd like to know, what you think and just how you feel about the poem. The poem is, again, it's been so anthologized, but also I feel like if I'd read that in its abridged version, I'll say, it would not have had near the impact on me as it has. I certainly wouldn't have gotten any of the other stanzas etched onto my body. But anyway, that's today's Dickinson. Hope you found something cathartic, inspirational. Hope you break through that plank of reason that is holding you back. And see you on the trail.